5 years into the marriage, John found another woman. I pretended not to know, but this time the girl was very disobedient and caused a scene right in front of me. She grabbed John's shirt and boldly kissed him on the face, while John indulged her antics. Holding the diagnosis of terminal illness in my hand, I suddenly felt fed up. "John, let's get a divorce." John thought I was threatening him. Everyone didn't believe it. After all, during the most tumultuous year, we fought all the way to the hospital, unwilling to let go even if it meant tormenting each other. But even John forgot that I'm a stubborn person. When I love deeply, and when I hate fiercely. I didn't want to have his name on my tombstone after I died. When I received the stomach cancer diagnosis, my mind went blank for a moment. It was all actually forewarned. It started with the nights of stomach pain. From school uniforms to wedding gowns, 5 years of marriage had drained all our emotions. Lying on the same bed, he always turned away from me and huddled at the edge, leaving me a profoundly indifferent back. Even if he turned to look at me, he would see me drenched in a cold sweat from the pain. The phone lit up inappropriately, and I mechanically clicked it open. In the video, a pretty girl was tugging at John's collar, boldly kissing him on the face. He indulged her antics, laughing carelessly. The girl's smile reminded me of my younger self. I almost forgot how long it had been since I last laughed. In a moment of daze, I remembered how he used to look at me like a bright light, illuminating my dark student days. 18-year-old John once said firmly, "Selena, don't be afraid. I will protect you for a lifetime." A lifetime is a long time, and I believed him. Even though I knew that 30-year-old John no longer loved me, I clung to the memory of his kindness, preferring to torment each other rather than letting go. But at this moment, I suddenly felt tired of it all. I didn't want to have his name on my tombstone after I died. Without a hint of hesitation, I endured the vague stomach pain and drove to the bar where John and his brother often went. Pushing open the door to the private room, the girl lost another game. John was quite drunk, swaying slightly. He tilted his head towards the girl, and pointed to his cheek, indicating for her to kiss him. I was all too familiar with this gesture. In the past, every time John was upset, he would lower his head in a pitiful manner and point to his cheek when he saw me. I stood on tiptoe and kissed his cheek. He wrapped me in his broad embrace, burying his head into my neck. The tall, skinny young man whined nasally, "Selena, give me a kiss." Back then, his heart and eyes were all set on me. Clearly, we loved each other so much, so how did we end up here? I couldn't understand. I didn't want to find answers anymore. Everyone in the private room was having a blast, engrossed in their own activities, and no one noticed my arrival. The girl was happy to lose the game again, cupping John's face and kissing him once more. John laughed even more carefree. When our eyes met as he lifted his gaze, his jawline tensed, and the panic in his eyes only flashed briefly. As long as we locked eyes, they kept on kissing. I thought I would be upset. I had once sworn that if he dared bring his lover in front of me and tainted my eyes, would make her wish she were dead. But it was all a bluff. I was fearful that if I truly saw it, I wouldn't be able to deceive myself anymore. But now, all that was left was the stomach pain. "John, are you having a good time?" I calmly walked up to John, and just as my hand lifted, he shielded the girl in front of him. He actually thought I was going to hit someone. How absurd. I picked up a glass of wine and splashed it on his face, the cold liquid tracing his sharp contours as it dripped down. At 30, John's eyes became even deeper, shedding the arrogance of youth and gaining a more mature and handsome look. Yet he was more confused than ever. John wiped his face roughly, now more sober. Sarcastically, he said, "Selena, we have no emotions left, and you won't divorce me. What's wrong with me having some fun?" Divorce. John still thought I was threatening him. Everyone didn't believe it. After all, during the most tumultuous year, when we fought our way into the hospital, hating each other to the point of wishing each other dead, we still preferred to torment each other and refused to agree to divorce. Even John had forgotten that I was a stubborn person. I could love deeply and hate fiercely. "John, I don't want you anymore. You're not worthy of me." I decisively took off my ring and threw it into the trash, cutting through the air with a resolute arc. I turned and walked away, but John grabbed my hand, sneering, "Selena, what's gotten into you? Where can you go if you leave me?" He knew I had no family and that I was alone, so he prodded at my sore spot. I endured the exacerbating stomach pain, slowly prying his fingers off one by one. "I'll go wherever I want." I decisively turned and walked away, and John's angry warning echoed from behind, "Selena, you better not regret this." He smashed the bottle on the ground, shattering it into pieces, reminiscent of our 12 years of love and memories. Leaving the bar, I suddenly felt relieved. It's finally over. On the street, couples embraced each other in love, adults held hands with children, and groups of friends chatted and laughed. The world was still noisy as ever. Suddenly, a downpour started, scattering the crowd. I, oblivious, walked alone in the rain for a long time. I didn't know where to go until I got tired and sat down, burying my head in my knees. Chills spread from my chest, and from now on, I truly was alone. My stomach hurts. Eventually, an umbrella shielded me from the cold rain. Looking up, tears naturally streamed down my face, even though I wasn't sad. Through the blurry light and shadow, I saw a familiar boy, his face showing fresh wounds from a recent fight. Despite standing in the pouring rain, he held the umbrella over me with a clenched fist. Reaching out to wipe the tears from my eyes, I coldly turned my head away, causing his hand to hesitate in midair before dropping back down under the rain. "Selena, I'm sorry. I'm late again," his voice trembled and hoarse. Whenever I was bullied, John would come to rescue me. He would appear regretful, apologizing over and over again, feeling worse than getting hurt himself. At my worst moments, I wouldn't cry, but in his gentle embrace, I would find solace. I was born into a dysfunctional family where my parents favored my younger brother over me. Anything he liked, I had to give him to please them. If I refused, my mother would scold me, and my father would smack me until I begged for forgiveness. Desiring love, I tried to be a good child, but no matter what, my parents still found fault in me. I questioned them, asking if I was really their own child. One day, in a fit of anger, my mother threw me out, locking me outside the house for a whole night. Later, my brother drowned while playing in the water, and in their grief, I became their outlet for frustration. I longed for love, but no one gave it to me. But John came to my rescue, saving me from the torment of my bullies. From that day on, he vowed to protect me forever. Then one day, he confessed his feelings despite his family's objections, and we ran away together. Being protected felt comforting, and being loved tasted sweet. I slowly recovered without needing to take strange medicines. David, a boy who resembled an 18-year-old John, appeared by my side, trying to cheer me up when I drank alone. He made me smile amidst my sadness. I shook my head bitterly, saying I was fine, just that my stomach hurt a lot. They say the stomach is the emotional organ. It always hurts when I'm sad. I fainted from the pain, and David carried me in his arms, shouting for a taxi in the rain to take me to the hospital. I had fragmented dreams, but when I woke up, my fever had subsided. Looking out the window at dusk, I leaned my head against the glass, feeling lost. Louis scolded me for being careless with my health, and for standing in the rain for so long. I knew he meant well, but as a patient, I felt like my time was running out. Louis is John's childhood friend, opposite in personality, calm, gentle, and like a big brother. "Selena, what are you babbling about? If you get treatment in time, there's still hope." John rarely loses his temper, but today his temper seems unusually bad. As I draw circles on the window, I think to myself, sure, just don't tell John. I don't want him to know I'm dying, to see me as a joke. If John finds out, he won't really ignore you. He still cares about you, I interrupt. Don't bother telling him. If you do, we can kiss our friendship goodbye. After a long pause, with tears in his eyes, Louis reluctantly utters one word, "Okay." Feeling a sudden urge, I run outside the ward to watch the sunset. David follows me, worried. I ask him to tell me jokes. Each one makes me laugh. "David, if I disappear, will you come looking for me?" "Yes." "Why? Do you like me?" David doesn't respond, he just closes his eyes in compliance. If you can't find me, then leave, I say, hiding in a secluded corner. I wait for a long time, but he doesn't find me. What was I even hoping for? As a beautiful butterfly flies by, my attention is captivated. Lost in chasing it, I collide with someone. Lily, be careful, John's tense voice warns, not directed at me. Turns out, the girl who looks like me is named Lily. Dazed, I lose my balance, twist my ankle, fall to the ground, bruising my knee, scraping my palms on the rough ground, feeling the pain. I see him holding the girl's hand, and I realize how disheveled I must look in comparison. Lily hides her smug smile, pretending to be sympathetic as she tries to help me up. Selena, are you okay? Young as she is, Lily is sharp and doesn't miss reminding me of her youth and beauty advantage. Ignoring her, I push myself up from the ground, brushing her off. Although my effort was feeble, she falls down as I push her. Looking frail, she says, Selena, don't be so harsh. It's the same condescending tone again. Everything I do now seems like a petty quarrel in his eyes. Unlike before, I don't feel as angry to have a big argument with him. I mockingly smile. John, you are the one going too far. We're not divorced yet, but here you are impatient, flaunting around with your lover. Can't you talk properly? Lily is just a college student I sponsor, no need to explain. Get the divorce settled when you have the time. Play however you like, it's none of my concern. Losing patience, I turn and leave, feeling nauseous even if I speak one more word with him. Perhaps my unusually cold response gives John a bad feeling. Suddenly grabbing my hand, he speaks with an uncharacteristically softer tone. I got drunk last night, it's my fault. I don't agree with the divorce. Don't touch me, it's disgusting, I say, feeling my emotions reach an extreme point with that touch. How much disappointment does it take to resist even a touch? I remember the first time we held hands, how we treasured the warmth of each other's palms, fingers intertwined, neither willing to let go. Our initial passionate love was real, just like the later mutual disdain. Love fades, and I had accepted this harsh truth a long time ago. The empty feeling suddenly occupies a large space in my heart. David finally finds me. He always shows up when I am most embarrassed. Rushing over, he punches John. The two engage in a fight, equally fierce and brutal. Lily cries in fear, "Stop! Someone could get hurt." The commotion attracts security guards, and it takes a lot of effort to separate the two. Selena, you dare cheat on me behind my back. John wipes the blood from his mouth, eyes blazing with anger. He flirts with a young, attractive girl in front of me, blaming it all on being drunk, just play acting. While falling sick and fainting in the rain, it was David who saved me, yet now he accuses me of betrayal. Walking straight up to him, I slap him. John, you're a jerk. As if awakened by my actions, John realizes that I am serious this time, and he panics. John has always been confident, thinking I couldn't leave him, believing the divorce threat was to provoke him, grab his attention. But I genuinely don't care for him anymore. I leave with David right in front of him. Selena, please don't go, John pleads meekly from behind, causing a chill to run down my spine. Without stopping, I continue walking, leaving him with an equally cold figure. On the way back to the ward, David remains silent, his fists clenched tightly, lost in his thoughts. As he tends to my wounds, he suddenly asks, if this were the outcome set in stone, would you choose to love him again? As the thick night sets in, the city's vibrant neon lights flicker, I confidently reply, no. Without expectations, there wouldn't be any hurt. I love John, giving him the privilege to hurt me. I leave the divorce matters to a lawyer to handle. John, uncooperative, insists on negotiating with me at home instead. But as my cancer spreads, my condition deteriorates rapidly, requiring hospitalization to ease the excruciating pain. I have no energy to deal with John's tortures. Each day, I have to take various medicines and injections. Due to my sensitive skin, my hand veins swell up, making it challenging for even the nurse to find a vein. Multiple attempts missing. Eating less each day, I barely ingest anything and feel nauseous whenever I do, hunching over the toilet, vomiting bile as my empty stomach heaves. I visibly lost weight and started to lose hair in large clumps. Lewis suggested chemotherapy, but I refused. The process is too painful, skin gets burned and dark, hair falls out terrifyingly, and I am scared. I don't want to look very ugly. David stayed by my bedside taking care of me, refusing to leave. I don't want him to see me in my current state. I couldn't eat, and he stopped eating too. Every time I had a stomach ache, I cried in pain, and he cried with me. I didn't understand why he was so good to me. We had only known each other for less than a month. Later, I found out that he had been lying to me all along. One day, I felt surprisingly good mentally and had a good appetite. I wanted to eat a lot of things, and David was quite happy and ready to go out to buy for me, but when he heard the dishes I wanted, he immediately refused, saying they would hurt my stomach, and I couldn't eat them until I got better. Was there still hope? Definitely. David surprisingly believed in metaphysics. He skillfully poured warm porridge from the thermos and handed the bowl to me. These days, I could barely drink a little porridge since I couldn't eat anything else. He cooked everything, and it was different every day. The steam rose in front of my eyes, suddenly making them teary. My stomach had never been good, and when I was sick before, John would cook porridge for me. He hated cooking but researched recipes and learned various ways just for me to eat more and get better quickly. Later, his cooking skills improved, but he cooked for me less frequently. He lost patience with me and started ordering takeout to placate me, saying he was busy and that I was too delicate. I was losing strength, I didn't want to move, feed me okay. No matter what unreasonable request I made, David would fulfill it. The bitterness in my heart kept growing, and my tears flowed down heavily. After calming down, the thought of divorcing John became strongly pronounced. I wanted to end my marriage with John while I still had some dignity left. Since our last unpleasant encounter, I hadn't seen John for over a month. Maybe he was sunk in some gentle land and had long forgotten that his nominally wife was still alive. I was not feeling good, and he wouldn't either. After sending David away, I picked up my phone. After so many injections, my hand trembled, and I could hardly hold the phone steadily. To push John out, I edited and posted intimate photos of John and Lily one after another online. It created ripples in the calm lake instantly. John was once a successful man in finance, not only in his career but also in his appearance, very handsome and classy. Although not a top-tier celebrity, he still had many fans soon. John's scandal hit the hot searches, sparking widespread discussions. During an interview, when he mentioned his wife, his eyes were brimming with affection, all just an act. Many things about Lily also came to light. She not only had an affair with John but also led on 2 or 3 rich men simultaneously. Her emotional life was chaotic, and her character was dubious. She bullied classmates for years. Affected by this, John's company's stock plummeted, and he suffered heavy losses. Lily was expelled from school and dared not show her face in public. Seeing them both punished, I laughed out loud, feeling relieved. But as I laughed, I couldn't help but cry, trembling all over. We had finally come to this point. As expected, John quickly found me. He cared a lot about his image and always kept himself well-groomed. But now, he stood before me looking haggard, with stubble growing, unshaved. "Selena, they say you are sick. I don't believe it. You must be lying to me again." I thought he had come to settle scores with me and laughed self-mockingly, saying, "It's true, John. Are you happy?" "As you wished, being so malicious, I have indeed met my retribution." Each calm word was like a knife, stabbing hard into his chest. "Those were just angry words. I don't want you to leave me." As soon as he spoke, John's tears flowed, and his hands, which had been hanging at his sides, tightened and relaxed, shaking uncontrollably. Unable to bear it, he covered his ears in discomfort, unable to continue listening. "I will find the best doctor to cure you. You will get better." "I don't understand, John, at this point, who are you putting on this affectionate act for? It's really nauseating." There were 2 sets of divorce agreements on the table, and I impatiently tapped the table with my fingers, indicating him to sign quickly. He stared at the table for a long time, his hand holding the pen still trembling, failing to grasp it a few times before it fell on the table. He willingly left with nothing, leaving all the property to me. Selina, I'm sorry, I made you lose yourself. The pent-up anger in my heart suddenly dissipated. I felt a sense of relief but also a deep sadness inside. From now on, I will truly be alone. John, we won't see each other again in this life. After finalizing the divorce papers, I saw David. The June day was hot, but I felt cold. David helped me put on my coat. When I looked into his eyes, I saw a face so similar to 18-year-old John's, and I no longer wanted to act with him. Young John, thank you. You crossed the long span of time, coming from the past to see me through the hardest days. Thank you for letting me experience real love and being loved. Now, it's time for you to go. His pupils dilated, his eyes quickly turned red, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, I didn't know I would turn out like this in the future. I am a jerk. Young John's body slowly became transparent. I guessed it right, as long as I recognized him, he would disappear. After you go back, don't provoke me again, okay? Can I hug you one more time? He asked humbly. No. I weakly smiled, shook my head, and turned to leave, not wanting to watch him slowly disappear before my eyes. An out-of-control van rushed towards me. Before I could react, I was hit with tremendous force. Selina, watch out. A voice from behind, heartbreaking. I was thrown 3 to 4 meters, hitting the ground hard, head severely injured, bleeding from multiple wounds. Ringing in my ears, blurry vision, 2 Johns staggered towards me. Accidents always happen unexpectedly, catching people off guard. As my body separated, my soul floated in midair. Watching myself lying in a pool of blood, the light in John's eyes shattered bit by bit. He fell to his knees, holding his head in repentance, crying like a helpless child. It was evident he was truly in pain, thinking there was still time for redemption. But no one expected that what would take my life wasn't a dreadful illness, but a sudden and unexpected accident. Dark clouds gathered, and the sky poured rain, even heaven wept for me. It's not so bad, dying this way is almost merciful. Past events flashed before my eyes like a slideshow. Memories I purposely tried to forget suddenly became clear. The scene froze at the age of 18. Young Selina, locked in a dark storage room, scared and crying helplessly in a corner. Next, she would face terrible bullying. The door slammed heavily and, accompanied by the bully's laughter, "Crazy girl, we know you're bored hiding in there, so we've come to play with you." Fear tightened her heart inch by inch. Young Selina had nowhere to hide. The sound of the key turning was sharp and piercing. The door kicked open, and the bully entered with a basketball in hand. The pain of the basketball hitting her head was something I could never forget even after many years. That was the beginning of a nightmare. When the basketball was thrown at her again, I blocked it in front of her without hesitation. Young Selina closed her eyes in fear, expecting pain, but it never came. Confused, she opened her eyes to see the ball hit my head, rebounding and hitting the bully's face. Neither of them could see me. Spooked, the bully covered his nose, blood streaming down. He ordered his lackeys to take turns hitting me, but every time, the ball rebounded back. They looked at each other in disbelief, shouting that it was haunted, scared out of their wits, running in all directions. With a head wound bleeding down my forehead, I gazed back at my past self. Young Selina looked up at me, her lifeless eyes trembling, tears flowing continuously. "Are you an angel?" Whenever I was beaten to despair, I would imagine an angel who would spread her wings to protect me and take me away. When they forced me to eat the leftovers of everyone at the table, left me outside the house overnight shivering in the cold, or nearly suffocated me underwater, I would escape into this fantasy. Eating, walking, sleeping. Because of this, they gave me a nickname, Crazy Girl. "Angel, can you take me away from here?" Tears streamed down my face, choking on every word, bitterly shaking my head. Young Selina's eyes returned to lifeless. She shrunk back into the corner, and I realized I was truly going mad, having hallucinations. The light dimmed, only the sound of sadness filled the air. I never had the courage to confront my past self. It was the image I desperately tried to avoid. Unloved, covered in scars. Mercifully, I was transported back in time with my soul. This time, I wanted to be a kind god to myself. Filled with a warm power in my heart, I made peace with my past self. I squatted in front of the young Selena, firmly stating, "The only one who can save you is yourself. Your parents not loving you is not your fault, they just don't love you. You've really done your best. Your classmates not liking you, that's not your fault either. No one can truly understand the pain you've been through. Remember, don't abandon your love and hope. When you're sad, don't overeat, don't hurt yourself. Grow up well, I'll be waiting for you in the future. Also, John doesn't love you anymore, and that's not your fault." The little girl threw herself into my arms, crying uncontrollably. I stayed by her side, ready to shield her from anyone who would hurt her, teaching them all a lesson. They couldn't see me, mistaking me for a ghost, all driven to madness by fear. A rare smile appeared on the little girl's face. Not far away, a young man leaned against the railing, looking over with a distant, obscure gaze. My gaze rested on his name tag, which read, "John." He kept his promise and didn't bother me again, and I cut off all ties with John. The gears of fate began to turn again, and my body slowly started to become transparent. The time had come, I knew I was about to disappear completely. "Doctor, the patient has woken up." I opened my eyes blankly, my mind a blank slate, not remembering anything, just knowing that I had been in a car accident. John hurried over, his eyes turning red upon seeing me. "Selena, you've finally woken up. Do you know who I am?" John paused for a moment, then quickly realized, explaining, "I'm Louis, your high school classmate. After the car accident, you suffered a serious head injury. Although the surgery was successful, you've been in a coma for 3 years, which may have caused memory loss. I'll give you a comprehensive examination later." The test results were all normal, but I still couldn't remember the past. While strolling down the hospital corridor, I was drawn to a beautiful butterfly and followed it without realizing it for a long time. When I turned back, I accidentally bumped into someone. "Careful." The man's voice was deep, his eyes profound, and he stared at me intently, calmly saying, "Are you okay?" I shook my head, "I'm fine, thank you." Just now. His mouth moved, as if he wanted to say something, but he remained silent. Though he seemed to be smiling at me, I could clearly see the sadness in his eyes. "Not a problem." Watching him walk away, I felt a sudden pang of bitterness in my heart. "Wait, have we met somewhere before?" He paused in his steps, not turning back, not responding to me, just standing with his back to me, his shoulders trembling almost imperceptibly. He was definitely a strange person. Looking down, I noticed a business card that had fallen from him. I picked it up and saw that his name was John. But who was John? The card suddenly felt hot in my hand, and I trembled, dropping it back to the ground. "Selena, why did you come out?" "It's time for your medication," Mandy called out. Mandy caught up with me, stepping on the card that had fallen to the ground. Seeing me lost in thought, she asked, "Selena, what's wrong? Why are you staring at my feet? Is there something dirty on them?" I snapped out of it, saying, "It's nothing, I've just been inside for too long and needed some fresh air." Back in the hospital room, there was a bowl of hot porridge on the table. "Mandy, who brought this?" "I have no idea, there's someone playing pranks every day, you shouldn't eat it, be careful, it might make you sick." Mandy took away the porridge, throwing it out as usual. "Selena, why are you crying?" My face felt icy cold, and I absent-mindedly wiped my face, finding it covered in tears. With distant pleasantries, we parted ways, becoming strangers once again. John's epilogue: I never thought I would fall in love with Selena. She is cold, aloof, keeping people at arm's length like a hedgehog with sharp spines. Every time I saw her, she was covered in bruises. But there was a stubbornness in her eyes that caught my attention. Even when bullied badly, she never showed weakness or asked for mercy. Her fierce resistance only brought more serious bullying. Initially driven by a sense of youthful justice, I just wanted to protect someone in need. But when she risked her life to pull me out from under a burning motorcycle, with blaring sirens in the background, my heart pounded fiercely in the life and death struggle. Without her quick action, would have been blown up in seconds. Unconsciously, I found myself falling for her. And later, I couldn't bear to see her hurt in any way. Selena has suffered too much hardship, and I wanted to give her the best of everything. My parents were furious when they found out about my relationship with her. They said we were from two different worlds. I was pampered and raised in luxury since childhood, unable to endure any hardship. Whereas she had been trampled in the mud, struggling to survive. With such different backgrounds, it seemed impossible for us to stay together. But I refused to believe it. I almost cut ties with my family just to be with her. Every obstacle only made us more determined to choose each other, deepening our love to the core. Just when I loved Selena the most, I unexpectedly time-traveled to the future. Learning that we were married, I was happy. But to my surprise, future me had a change of heart. My love for Selena had vanished, yet she still loved me deeply. We kept arguing, I lost patience and started staying out all night, indulging in revelries and deceit. Seeing Selena in pain hit me hard. I, of all people, hurt her the most. She fell seriously ill, and the news of her terminal illness left me surrounded by helpless despair. How did things end up like this? Selena was tormented by illness, writhing in bed, struggling to keep down anything she ate, her fair hands swollen from needles, losing clumps of hair. She would stare out the window blankly, asking me why I treated her so well. I dared not speak, only remained silent. If she found out, I would be the David of the past. Knowing her, she would surely drive me away. Most importantly, if she learned the truth, I would vanish from this world. I couldn't leave her alone. If I could ease her pain, would do anything, even if it meant dying right now without hesitation. But I couldn't bear to see her suffer even a bit. Selena was resolute. Once she was hurt enough, no amount of repentance would make her turn back. She would abandon everything about me, good or bad. Even in her delirium, all she thought about was divorcing me to sever all ties. The day of the divorce, I stood outside for a long time. The sun was scorching, but Selena looked so pale, as though she could disappear at any moment. I wanted to be with her until the end, fulfilling all her wishes. But she recognized me still. My body was slowly becoming transparent, and I begged for one last embrace. As expected, she refused, saying, "John, after returning to the past, do not provoke me again." Selena left me with a cold shoulder. It was my actions that hurt her deeply, leading to her resolute departure. My heart was in agony, thinking this was the end of our story. However, Selena was suddenly hit by an out-of-control truck, and I could only watch as she fell into a pool of blood. Selena was afraid of pain, losing so much blood. How much pain she must be in. All my cries were stuck in my throat, as I desperately ran over but couldn't grab onto anything. The moment I touched her hand, I disappeared completely. I hated my future self, exchanging my remaining life to ensure Selena's safety and joy. I returned to the past, before ever meeting Selena this time. Selena protected herself in her own way, and all I could do was stay away from her, silently watching over her. The wheels of fate turned anew, rewriting everything from the past. Selena's memories of John were gradually erased. I time-traveled again, and when I woke up, Selena had completely forgotten me. And I was dying. This time, let her live well. As long as she can live well, that would be enough.